Hi everyone, so I just want to talk to you about how to read literature like a professor for a little bit. The reason why I chose this book is because it is kind of a really nice snapshot shot into learning how to read deeply, into not just reading for the story, but reading for the inner meaning maybe that the author thought about, wanted to express, or maybe they did it accidentally, which I'll talk about later. Um, but this is good for learning all the little symbolisms and things that go into literature. Now, I will say this is included in a lot of AP literature courses. But I will say this, there are some things that get heavy in the writing, things that maybe you wouldn't do in your life that this book is talking about. So I want to caution you, if there is something in here that you don't feel comfortable reading, please talk to your parents about it. And if you don't want to read this book, I would ask that you have your parents email me. You can't email me about it. I need your parents to email me about it because I need to make sure that that is what they want, because that is fine with me. So there's topics, it talks about sometimes drug use and things like that, because that is found in literature. There are hard topics that are going to be discussed in this class, so I need you to understand that, because literature sometimes, what literature does, even if it's science fiction, even if it's speculative, it is taking a piece of humanity and putting it in a story, and sometimes humanity is not pretty. Sometimes a lot of the times, humans make really bad decisions. In literature, sometimes those really bad decisions are fuel for a really beautiful story. And sometimes those stories are redemptive stories. Sometimes those stories are warning stories. And so that is why this book is important, and that is why I do think it's important that when we do hit heavy topics, if you feel uncomfortable, talk to your parents, send me an email, or have your parents send me an email. And we can talk about it, we can discuss it, and we can change assignments for you. But that part has to be between your parent and myself. Okay, does that make sense? And you can even show your parents this video so that they know that there might be some stuff in here. But so what I'm going to try and do is just talk about the major points that I want to get to, and mostly everything for this book is going to be discussion based. So all the assignments for this book, I will post something for you to think about that was discussed in here. I will discuss it myself, and then you guys will come in with the message board, okay? So it's not the end of the world if you don't read this. So, okay. The thing in the introduction that it talks about, I found really interesting, is the author, I need to look at the author, Thomas Foster, talks about the grammar of literature. And I know that, we've had so much grammar up until this point with writing and everything, but there really is a grammar with literature, just as there's a grammar with film. There's a grammar, it's the building blocks, it's the stepping stones. And so there's certain things that authors write about thinking, society knows this reference, so I don't need to explain this reference, okay? So sometimes a white horse in literature will mean someone's going to die. Sometimes a dog in literature and in art will mean fidelity. So they're often seen in maybe wedding scenes, things like that. So these are the things you're going to start learning. Do you miss a lot reading these things and not picking up on these little signs and things? No, you can still enjoy the story, but sometimes you can get a lot more out of it if you know the references. And so that's what this book tackles. And that's why I want you guys to read it, because it really is a good book, but I want to make sure that you guys are comfortable with it as well. Okay? Also, I know you guys have heard the word trope. So what is a trope? A trope is a basic set of things that someone looks for when they're reading, say, like within a genre. Okay, so historical literature, you're going to have a main character that wasn't necessarily in the moment in history, but everything going on around the main character actually did happen in history. So there's a fictionalized story behind the real occurrence. So sometimes that is a trope in historical fiction. Sci-fi, you have space, robots. These are different types of things that one would expect to find when reading within a genre. And so even characters, you have different types of characters, and all of them, we'll talk about archetypes of characters in a later week, probably next week actually, because we're going to be working on characters. Archetypes, so like the evil villain, the bashful little girl, the sports hero, the warrior. These are all archetypes that are within literature that people pull from to write about. And so that's another thing you're going to be learning in here. So we'll talk about that. My question for you is, every little thing can have meaning if you dig in deeply enough, okay? It has some sort of meaning, even if the author didn't intend it to be so. My thought to you is, what do you think about when a teacher or someone like me or your parents sit there and say, oh, well, this symbolizes that they're coming upon a hard time. Like if you wake up in the morning and there's a thunderstorm, what is your thought from the day? Those types of things are brought into literature. So my question for the discussion board for this group today is, do you think that an author always means to do this? Do you think that sometimes there is overanalyzing happening? Do you think sometimes a chair is just a chair? Do you think sometimes a thunderstorm is just a thunderstorm? Or does it always have to have meaning? This is my question. Was there ever a book that you read that you found other people found meaning in, that you just enjoyed the story? There was no deeper meaning. I mean, there's all these Harry Potter, there's all these books out there, analyzing Harry Potter. And so you have to think to yourself, what did J.K. Rowling mean to really mean all that? Well, I'm not sure. So that's one of the things that we're going to discuss. I know that in the book that I'm writing right now, I'm just going to admit something to you. There are a few times in my book where I do things that are more like literary based. My book is young adult. Like foreshadowing that I didn't necessarily mean to foreshadow. And so people will be saying, and it's funny because people will be sitting around talking about it and say, well, I really like how you foreshadowed this event. And I'm like, oh, why, thank you. I wasn't looking at it as a foreshadow. There are times where I pulled in literary elements into my story, but that's just not always the case. Sometimes a chair is just a chair. And so that's what we need to figure out in our writing. When people eat together, you're going to read about when people eat together. What is the meaning of that? Why is eating together considered communion? What about that is communion, even in the Christian sense? Like, how is just sitting down and eating a cheeseburger with someone powerful enough to call it communion? What does it mean in a story? Like, if someone is eating in a story with another person, what does that mean? So these are the things I want you to think about. So what do you think? Are we over-analyzing sometimes? Are we analyzing just right? Do you really think that sometimes the author or the artist, even this happens in art history all the time, did the artist really intend for this? So just give me your thoughts. Just go for it. Okay, bye.